When new cycleways were proposed for Canada Bay, one of the things that worried me is that council would repeat the mistakes of the past and build them with totally rubbish ramps. Unfortunately, our suburbs are littered with paths that are joined to the adjacent roads by really bad ramps. Ramps that are too steep, ramps that end in sharp drop-offs or lips, ramps that drop you into a drain on the other side of the road, or ramps that terminate in 90-degree bends and fail to flow smoothly. Well, I'm pleased to say that none of these mistakes have been repeated in the Broughton Street cycleway so far. At the corner of Broughton Street, you can really see the difference between the old and the new. The old ramp is narrow and is deliberately designed to not flow. The new ramp on the other side of the road is wide enough to accommodate cyclists passing in opposite directions, and it joins the road surface cleanly. You hardly feel a bump as you transition from road to path. While I was shooting some video next to Goddard Park, a truck pulled up behind me and the two blokes in it asked me what I thought of the new cycleway. I'd seen them cleaning up the leftover reinforcing mesh, so I figured they worked for the construction company that's building it. I told them that they had done a great job with the concreting and I was looking forward to it opening. They seemed really chuffed about the positive feedback. Everyone likes to know that their work is appreciated. I'd guess that about 75% of the cycle path is complete alongside Goddard Park, but work hasn't started on the raised pedestrian sections that go over the top of the tree roots. And this is where I started wondering about the actual cost of this cycleway. The entire project is costing $1.7 million, an average of about $4,000 per metre of cycleway. It really boggles the mind to think that something as simple as a cycleway could cost that much. However, I guess when you factor in community consultation, design work, redesign work, planning, approvals, coordination of road closures and so on, I can appreciate that stuff other than concrete adds a lot to the cost these days. But what else has added a lot to the cost? For example, how much would it have cost council to have simply removed the car parking alongside Goddard Park, added a new concrete kerb to separate vehicle traffic from the cycleway, and maybe just resurfaced the cycleway section? I reckon would have been a lot cheaper than all this work you are seeing here. All this additional work has been justified on the grounds of retaining the trees alongside the edge of the park, and I get that, everyone likes trees. However, the only reason the trees were going to be removed in the first place was in order to save 12 parking spaces on the western side of Broughton Street. And I'm not sure how often those 12 parking spaces are normally used. I've only ever seen them used for about half an hour per day during school pickup time. If, for example, it cost an extra $600,000 to relocate the cycleway from the road to the park in order to retain the parking spots, and look, I'm making that number up as I don't know what the detailed budget was, then in that case each spot would have ended up costing us $50,000 each. I reckon it'd be worth getting hold of the detailed budget to actually work out what the cost per parking space ended up coming to. Governments might make more rational spending decisions if we ask the question, are those parking spots really worth that much each? Now I can understand that in a busy shopping area like Five Dock, where it's a commercial centre and parking is at a premium, but this is next to a park in a quiet residential area. Well, we really don't know, because either no one has bothered to work out what impact that really had on the project cost, or they did, and they've never released the figures to the public. It's not something we generally think about, but traffic signals cost a lot of money. During a discussion with staff working on the WestConnex project, we were told it was going to cost about $50,000 to install a pair of bicycle signals at one intersection. None of us could understand how simply adding a pair of signals on either side of the road, as shown here, could cost that much. It was then explained that most of that cost was in design and then engaging a contractor to do the installation. The signals themselves cost bugger all. At the Gipp Street intersection, not only are we getting new signals, we're also getting 4 new poles because existing poles have to be relocated to make way for new ramps. I can't imagine what that's going to be costing, but it's something to bear in mind when looking at the cost of future cycleway projects. I'm also going to assume that redesigning the signals is one of the most time-consuming tasks for a project. The RMS Signals branch probably requires months of advance notice to do the designs, get them approved via the change control process, and then scheduling the work. That can take forever these days. This is certainly a factor that cyclists need to consider when looking at pop-up cycleways. We just look at the plastic and the paint and the odd bit of concrete ramp here and there and think that's all there is to the project, when in fact most of the pop-ups have also required the installation of new bicycle signals. Spare a thought for the project managers who have to deal with that. Anyway, getting back to parking. Maybe the additional cost of the project from retaining parking along Broughton Street should have been taken out of the council parking budget for this year. If that was done, would council have insisted on retaining these parking spots if it meant forgoing the construction of new parking spots elsewhere because the money was spent here instead? Being forced to think about trade-offs like that is wonderful for concentrating the mind. Is spending money on retaining these spots really worth forgoing new parking spaces, say near a shopping centre or a swimming pool, or even resurfacing an existing car park? Especially since these parking spaces generate no revenue. I wonder how council would react to that idea for future projects. Until next time, cheerio.